Okay, so we're doing our chain stitch, and I'm actually using 3 strands for this one. So it's really optional how many strands you use. I don't have a set in stone amount of strands that you use, but for the chain stitch, I'm going to use 3. Main reason is just because it saves thread. And it can be a little bit easier to work with. So if you're having trouble with the 6 strands, you're twisting a lot, I would just switch to 3 strands. Okay, so we're gonna come up through the back of the fabric and then go down through the same point, which creates this little loop. And then before we close our loop, so I like to hold it with one hand, I'm gonna come up, and this is gonna determine the length of your chain. So you can do a really short chain and make a bunch of little ones, or you can do a really long chain and create a longer chain stitch. I'm gonna do about half of that for my first bit, and then you can even switch and do some longer and some shorter. And you're just gonna come up, oops. You're just gonna come up through your chain and then pulling it closed, and it creates this looped chain. And so to continue that pattern, you're gonna put your needle back down through the loop again beside the other chain. And then just doing the exact same pattern of coming up through the back of the fabric, putting your loop over top of your needle, and then pulling your thread through that loop. And the key is to keep your chains the same length so that it creates a really nice even stitch. Same with all of our other stitches, but okay, so you're just looping that around and then pulling it down. And the trickiest part, I think, is keeping the loops the same length, because even I can see my first one was a little longer, and keeping them the same distance can be hard. If you're working on something like a curved pattern, when you might not always want to keep all of your loops the same, sometimes on a curve, you want to shorten up your loops of your chain to get a better curve. So if you have a tight, sharp corner that you're doing, or like a angle, you're probably going to want to make smaller chains so that you can get more detail out of your curve. If you're doing a really nice, like, curvy writing, the chain stitches are a really common one to use for like a handwritten font, because it's a very like whimsical, and it creates a beautiful lettering stitch for cursive. Okay, so you can just continue this pattern until you get to the end, and you can experiment with different chain lengths to see what that looks like if you'd like. And then when you're done, I will see you at the end to close this stitch up. Okay, so to finish your chain stitch, you are just going to do your last chain coming up at the end. So you want your last loop to end at the end of your chain, and then you are just going down on the other side. And you're done. That's your chain stitch.